Developing tonight, growing anger from veterans across America tonight after a New York Times opinion piece is posted titled Veterans and White Supremacy. It links America's veterans to hate groups and suggests that somehow they, the vets, represent an increased risk to our safety and our citizenry. And look at the graphic we're about to show you. Paul Rieckhoff is the founder and CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and he served as a first lieutenant and infantry rifle platoon leader in the Iraq War from 03 to 04. Paul, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Megan.
And so what are you hearing from veterans about this piece?
Complete and total outrage. I mean, across the board, from the moment this graphic hit the web, from the moment the title came out, everybody across the board, no matter what their political background, no matter where they are, they're outraged, they're offended, and they want an apology.
So what are we seeing here?
Look at the graphic. I mean, you know, this says it all. I don't even have to really comment except to show the graphic and the title, and to even try to link veterans with white supremacy or any other type of extreme group is offensive, but also it's not factually based. I mean, her argument is garbage and isn't supported by the facts and is really folding into this stereotypical narrative that veterans are either homicidal maniacs or victims, which we have to fight back against every single day.
She says, look, the facts are there to support her theory that not all veterans are linked with white supremacists, but that enough of them are that we need to be calling attention to it. And she points to a 2009 study by the Department of Homeland Security that made this linkage as her evidence.
Right, which has been refuted by most experts in the field. Not to mention the military is probably one of the most diverse major organizations on the planet.
Okay, but wait, let me stop you there, then I'll give you the floor, because she seems to acknowledge that. I want to put the quote on the board. She says, and I quote, "A vast majority of veterans are neither violent nor mentally ill, but it would be irresponsible to overlook the high rates of combat trauma among the 2.4 million Americans who have served in our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan."
Yeah, but to assume that high rates of trauma equate to homicidal behavior or extremism is a huge leap, and it's not supported by the facts. And the military actually worked very hard in the late 90s to push all extreme elements out of the military. So they've been very aggressive in tackling this issue. And you know, what really is shocking is the title. And no matter what she says after that title and that graphic, it's really hard to take her seriously. So that's why veterans across the country are outraged. We want an apology from the New York Times. We want to focus on the more important issues and the positive aspects of what our veterans are doing. They're leaders, they're citizens, they're fathers and mothers. They're doing great things, and especially after the Fort Hood coverage, which in large part was terrible, we've got to push back against these stereotypes and hold the media accountable.
She's talking in this piece, and it seems to she's working on a book about this issue and has been for years, but she seems to be focusing this on the shooting in Overland Park, Kansas, where this white supremacist, who was also a veteran, came out, and you know, he was a pusher of the white power movement. And so she seems to think this is the latest news hook to validate her theories. And she comes out and writes, and I quote, "Would this man have received greater scrutiny had he been a Muslim, a foreigner, not white, not a veteran? The answer is clear and alarming."
The answer is not clear. What's alarming is this article and her entire train of thought here, which has been widely refuted by most experts in the field and by the veterans community. And I think I would love to have her on your show to defend this. I want to see her defend this against the veterans of this country, the American public. It's just not supported by facts.
She basically points to things like Timothy McVeigh, this guy that I just mentioned, and says, you know, we need to. Well, you can cherry pick
You can cherry pick any element of their past and try to create a connection between them.
But my question to you is, do you think that she would be getting further pushback if instead of saying, you know, this guy did this and this guy did this, pointing to, you know, the first Fort Hood shooter and another, you know, Muslim and said we need to be keeping a greater eye on them?
Undoubtedly. Veterans are unfortunately one of the few minority groups that it's still okay to stereotype, apparently. And we've got to be defensive about that, especially after Vietnam. We know how the country turned against our veterans in a shameful way. And I think all generations are especially protective of this new generation of veterans who've done so much over the last 10 years and really need some care in certain areas. We've got to focus on suicide and unemployment. But for the most part, they're out there doing great things and representing this country better than almost anybody.
And not joining white supremacy groups.
No, the opposite. The opposite.
All right, Paul.
Thank you, Megan.
Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Let me know what you think about the New York Times op-ed. Go to facebook.com/The Kelly File and send me a tweet at Megyn Kelly.